Manuel Lujan Jr., how do you celebrate a life so full and so dedicated to New Mexico?
Well, with the help of his wonderful family through pictures, both personal and professional. Here's a look showing his love and commitment to you, to me, every one of us here in the land of enchantment. Manuel Lujan was born May 12, 1928, on the San Ildefonso Pueblo near Pewaukee. This is the oldest picture provided to us by the family. It's from St. Michael's High School in Santa Fe in 1942, but we do not know where he is in the photo. After graduating, Lujan tried college in California, but after only a year, he missed home. He missed New Mexico and returned to Santa Fe and graduated from St. Michael's College in 1950. Shortly after that, he went to work in the family business, the Manuel Lujan Insurance Agency, started by his father. Lujan Jr. then opened another office in Albuquerque, and that's when it all changed, when he decided politics, public service, is where he wanted to be. By this time, Lujan was already married to his lovely wife, Jean, and they went on to have 4 children, Tara, Jay, Jeff, and Barbara. Now, back to his political start. It began when he became the New Mexico Republican Party chairman, but that wasn't enough. He ran for Congress and won in 1968, serving 10 consecutive terms. His effectiveness in that office got the attention of both President Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, who became a close friend. While in Congress, he was a strong advocate for Indian affairs, energy issues, and of course, Hispanics. In addition to representing New Mexico at every Republican National Convention from 1972 to 2004, in 1980 he was a featured keynote speaker when Ronald Reagan was the party's nominee. Remember that friendship I mentioned between Lujan and Mr. Bush? Well, that turned into an offer to be the U.S. Secretary of the Interior in the Bush administration, which Lujan initially declined. But that didn't last long. Bush appealed to his friend, and Lujan took the job, serving in that role until 1993, when Bill Clinton became president. As his federal role was wrapping up, many wondered if Lujan would come home to be the next governor, overseeing the people and the state he loved so much. But he wasted no time responding, saying he was through running for office. Still, he returned to the land of enchantment and worked as a lobbyist and public speaker, never once for his entire adult life not working for the betterment of New Mexico and New Mexicans. For the most part, in his 2 decades in Congress, Lujan won re-election every 2 years pretty easily. One exception, though, was in 1980. He faced off against our former Governor Bill Richardson, who ran a strong campaign which made for a very close race. Lujan won with just 51%. Just 2 years later, they were both in Congress as Richardson won New Mexico's newly created 3rd district seat. After that election, Lujan said it would never be that close again, and it never was. He won his final 3 elections with 52, 65, and 71% of the votes.
We've heard from a lot of people across New Mexico about the impact Lujan made, and earlier this week we talked with some of his family. His brother tells us just how much that meant to Manuel.
All of this other accolades and all that, for as he was concerned, didn't mean as much as somebody giving him a call and saying, thank you for what you did for me. Those were the big accolades for him.
Manuel's sister also spoke with us. She explains how even with how much he accomplished, he always had time to help.
I'd go to my dad for counsel and I'd say, blah, blah, blah. This is what I think I should do. And he'd say, no, I don't think you should do that. I think maybe this would be a better way to approach it. But he said, I know when you walk out that door, you have your own life to live and you'll do what you think is right. And hopefully it'll turn out okay. And sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't. Should have taken his counsel. But we all learn from that. So always available for not only his constituents, but for his family.
Manuel Lujan left a legacy that still has an impact on New Mexico.
Action 7 News reporter Nancy Laughlin shows us how tonight he is being remembered by his colleagues as someone who paved the way for them and you.
You all, for a Republican to be elected repeatedly in northern New Mexico is a huge accomplishment, something that doesn't happen very often. It is something Manuel Lujan was able to do for many years. His colleagues say Lujan's personality was a big reason why. That big smile of Manuel Lujan's was infectious. His colleagues say it could win people over on both sides of the aisle, immediately putting them at ease.
He was just a remarkably reachable person.
Former Congressman Steve Pearce says Manuel Lujan was a mentor, someone who returned phone calls and never forgot where he came from.
Those are really special traits in an elected official. A lot of times people get sort of aloof and they get too important, and he always remained a person of the people.
Pearce says Lujan helped give Native Americans a voice in Washington.
I led on Native American housing for the last 6 years, put it in front of the Senate for those 6 years, and so we could see his footsteps all the way along in front of us.
Lujan tried to strike a balance, Pearce said, between business groups and environmentalists.
That had to be very difficult in those early days.
He said Lujan believed in preserving public lands and a strong national defense. More than that, though, Pearce says, he was a role model of what a politician should be.
He is just one of the most decent people in politics, and that standard that was set for the rest of us is something that's endearing, but it's also important to remember.
Now, Pearce says Manuel Lujan was truly a kind man, someone who was friendly yet committed, definitely not a pushover.
And on a personal note, he was very excited when you came back to New Mexico from San Antonio.
He was. I had just moved home and I saw him and he goes, "Are you John's daughter?" My dad, he's like, "Are you John's daughter?" And I go, "Yeah." And he was super friendly, always helpful. He was out of public office at that point, so he didn't have a reason to do that. He was just a really nice man.
That's why he was
Never
so
forget it.
successful in
Yeah.
politics. Yeah.
Certainly a rich life. Thank you so much, Nancy, for that. Well, right now we do have a special video online to remember the life of Manuel Lujan Jr. If you'd like to leave your favorite memories of him, just head over to our Facebook page.
There are signs of Lujan all over the state, especially in Albuquerque. Numerous awards and scholarships are named after him. Even a few buildings bear his name, including the Manuel Lujan Jr. Indian Affairs Building, and at Expo New Mexico, the Manuel Lujan Jr. Exhibit Complex. And check this out, an Italian restaurant near downtown with a little piece of the congressman's past. You have to look hard on the side of Capo's on Central. It's hard to read, but you can still see a bit of the old sign saying Lujan to Congress.